Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to teasers on The Young and the Restless, Mariah Copeland might get a mysterious blackmail note that begins with 5 frightening words. Will Mariah be confronted with a startling threat and be reminded of the business trip she would prefer to forget? Fans are wondering where Mariah's plot would go from here because she is still troubled by the drunken night she spent with the stranger she eventually smothered. Mariah is not doing well at all, despite being in therapy and making every effort to deal. Of course, once Mariah sees how close Daniel Romalotti Jr. and Tessa Porter are becoming, she might be feeling even worse. Mariah's opportunity to save her marriage could seem to be evaporating. However, if Mariah receives an enigmatic blackmail note, her life might be completely upended. That might be just what this YNR tale needs to get a boost of excitement and go on to a new and thrilling chapter. Mariah might believe she is the only one aware of the atrocity that occurred that evening, but what if she is mistaken? On soap operas, secrets tend to leak, thus Mariah could be appalled that someone would learn of her illegal activities. This leads us to the first 5 frightening words that could appear at the beginning of that enigmatic blackmail message: I know what you did. Mariah might lose it if someone finds out about the smothering and takes advantage of it. Rumors have circulated that Kane Ashby might discover the secret and take advantage of it. After all, it appears like Holden Novak may want to acquire Cassidy First Technology as part of his ambitious goals, and Kane encouraged him to contact with Mariah. It's interesting to think about the possibility that Kane would act dirty if he takes over Sharon Newman's business by using Mariah's secret. Another possibility is that the stranger will find Mariah to play tricks on her after surviving her attempt to suffocate her. However, if that man did actually die, a family member might be seeking retribution. In any event, it would be fascinating to watch Mariah navigate a blackmail situation. Mariah may get a message that results in demands and a mystery surrounding the threat's origin. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, Mariah will always have more unpleasant news to deal with. With her knee bouncing restlessly beneath the table, Mariah was sad in crimson lights, staring at her phone as if it were ready to explode in her fingers. She was trying to sip her coffee, but she kept missing her lips, spilling drops over the napkin in front of her. She had experienced a lot in Genoa City: kidnappings, betrayals, surrogacy drama, and family betrayals that were like knives, but this message was different, worse because it wasn't something she could rationalize or link to a familiar enemy. It was chilling in its simplicity, and it began with the words, "We know your secret." At first, she assumed it was a scam, perhaps some spam text from an untraceable number that meant nothing, but as she read the rest of the message, she realized that the details were too close to home, too specific, and things that only someone who was following her, someone who knew her movements and past, would dare to write. Every line felt like a direct stab to her mental stability, especially the part that mentioned the night she tried to push down and forget, the night her heart told her she had crossed a line no one was supposed to cross. Her fingers trembled as she tried to read it again, hoping her imagination was exaggerating. Now apprehensive, Mariah looked up and gazed around the coffee shop, wondering whether the person who sent the text may be watching her now, lurking in plain sight, drinking coffee like any other person in Genoa City. As she whispered to herself, "No, this can't be happening again," she felt the walls closing in, her breaths becoming shallower, and her hands gripping the phone tighter. Her mind raced back to the time she was abducted by Stitch and left in that room by herself, scared, bewildered, and deprived of her autonomy, and she vowed never to allow herself to feel that helpless ever again. However, the wording of the text were so controlled that it seemed as if the sender had already bound her with invisible shackles. "We are aware of your secret. We saw, even if you believed you had buried it. Mariah, pay attention, this is just the beginning." Her thoughts trying to figure out what secret it was, she gulped hard and bit her lip till she tasted blood. Like all the people of Genoa City, she had an abundance of them. Could it have to do with her conflicts with Tessa, their private arguments, or the tears she kept from her mother? Is there something about Dominic that no one else should know, something related to her time serving as Abby's surrogate? Or would it be something more sinister, something buried far deeper, related to her identity as Cassie's twin or her history with Ian Ward? It was made worse by the ambiguity, which exposed her to countless assumptions, each more significant than the previous. A follow-up message appeared almost immediately, as if the sender was watching her response in real time, and her phone buzzed once again. "We'll tell them for you, or don't tell anyone." Tessa was the one person she wanted to protect from all the suffering in the world, therefore the mere mention of her name made her stomach turn and a tear fill up in her eye. Because Mariah could withstand nearly anything, the blackmailer knew just how to corner her and twist the knife, but placing Tessa in the crosshairs was a different type of pain. Her hand was shaking as she grabbed for her coffee again, but she was unable to swallow it any longer. The liquid turned to ash in her throat. She stuffed her phone into her purse. She needed air, she needed movement, and she needed to think. Her heart was beating in time with her footsteps as she ran out of Crimson Lights, her mind repeatedly repeating the phrase until it became indelibly inked on her head like a vicious tattoo. The streets of Genoa City seemed less familiar and more dangerous, as if there was an invisible guardian at every turn and her name was spoken by every shadow. The truth was that she had experienced enough chaos to know when danger was genuine, and this was serious. She reminded herself not to spiral out of control or overreact. Fumbling with her keys, she hurried home, slamming the door behind her and putting her back against it as if her will alone could keep the world out. But as soon as she took her phone out again, she saw that another message had arrived, perhaps mocking her attempt to hide. "You went right home, good girl. That's shrewd. Now continue to listen." When she realized that they were actually watching her in real time, tracking her movements and possibly even seeing inside her house, her scream became stuck in her throat and she experienced a rush of nausea. She whirled around, looking in all directions for any concealed cameras, microphones, or other clues that might reveal how they knew. She recalled the time it took her to break free from Ian Ward's manipulation of her, when she felt like a puppet on his strings. That couldn't happen to her again. Not right now. Not after she had put in so much effort to recover, start a family, and establish a normal relationship with Tessa. She became even more alarmed when she read the following passage in the message: "We want something. And either Tessa finds out or you're going to give it to us. And she won't ever look at you the same after she realizes it." Her vision became blurry due to tears, and she clutched her stomach as if she were preparing for an invisible blow. She had put a lot of effort into proving to herself and everyone else that she was deserving of love and trust, and to prevent her past from dictating her future. But with a few words and secrets that ought to have remained hidden, this stranger, this anonymous tormentor, threatened to ruin all. Her mind was shouting, "What truth?" as she paced the room after dropping her phone upon the couch. What do they believe to be true? Was it a story that had been manipulated to harm all parties involved because of her involvement in Abby's surrogacy? Before she and Tessa reconnected, was it about a night she wanted to forget with someone else? Or was it something more sinister, a secret she was unaware she had forgotten? She froze when her phone buzzed once more. She couldn't help but peek even though she didn't want to see. Don't consider rushing to Sharon. Don't consider sobbing in front of Devon or Abby. In this case, you are on your own. Show that you're intelligent enough to participate in our game. With the phone burning in her fingers like a ticking time bomb, Mariah slid into the couch and pulled her knees to her chest like a child, her chest heaving. The game was about secrets, lies, and manipulation, the kind that might ruin everything she loved if she made the wrong move. She was trapped, just like before, but this time the enemy wasn't obvious, the walls weren't tangible, and the game wasn't about survival in the traditional sense. The message's opening salvo, a statement so cliched in fiction but so completely terrible in reality that it freezes the blood and short-circuits the mind, is what initially shocks people, not the content, which hasn't been released yet. "I know what you did" is more than just an allegation, it's an existential key that opens a door deep into the recipient's mind, in this case, a woman we'll name Mariah. In order to fully understand the profound and complex ramifications of that one frightening sentence, this analysis will examine its psychological effects, its role as a narrative device in Mariah's life, the terrifying ambiguity it creates, and the complex power dance it starts between the victim and the blackmailer. Mariah's entire world is turned from a place of apparent security into a maze of fear where every past action is potentially suspect and every future moment is pregnant with the threat of exposure because the message starts with this assertion of knowledge rather than with a demand or a specific threat. "I know what you did" is powerful because it skillfully manipulates psychology. It is a statement that uses the very private, very human realm of shame, guilt, and secret to intimidate rather than educate. The conduct does not have to be specified by the sender. Actually, its biggest advantage is its ambiguity. Mariah's mind does not coolly analyze the situation after reading those words. Instead, it instantly and uncontrollably goes through a list of her own sins, both imagined and real. It brings to light every ethical lapse, concealed error, and suppressed remorse she has ever harbored. Was it the years-old financial irresponsibility? That white lie that got out of hand? The treachery she had been trying so hard to forget on a personal level? Mariah is made to project her own worst fears onto the blank canvas of the accusation in what amounts to a psychological Rorschach test. The crafty blackmailer knows that the victim's conscience will frequently torment them more effectively than any specific information they might offer. Mariah is instantly isolated by this method. She is by herself with this message and the tornado of anxiety it causes inside of her, unable to ask for help or consolation without possibly disclosing the very weakness the blackmailer is trying to take advantage of. This opening line is also a brilliant example of narrative hijacking. Each person is the author and curator of their identity and history, the main character in their own life story. We meticulously edit our pasts, erasing embarrassing moments, defending our decisions, and burying the parts we believe are inappropriate for the general public. This intimate story is violently invaded by the message, "I know what you did." Now, an unknown person or thing has claimed to be a co-author of Mariah's story. They hold a fragment of her truth that she thought she alone could govern. The illusion of a cohesive and controllable self is destroyed by this. In addition to threatening to divulge a secret, the blackmailer is also threatening to expose a different side of Mariah than the one she displays to the outside world, including her friends, family, and coworkers. The blackmailer's leverage stems from this potential contradiction, the difference between her private conduct and her public identity. The horrific rewriting of her life's narrative that would result from its disclosure is more terrifying than the deed itself. Suddenly, someone else's knowledge has taken her identity as a captive. These words' profound and scary ambiguity is another factor contributing to their alarming nature. This opener establishes a universe of unknown threats, in contrast to the straightforward threat that defines the battlefield: "Pay me or I will tell everyone about the embezzlement." The absence of specificity is a kind of mental agony. Mariah is left in a state of excruciating suspense. Who is the sender? What precisely are they aware of? How did they find it? What proof do they have? The blackmailer's unknowable level of information paralyzes. Mariah could have started evaluating the harm, creating a strategy, and possibly even determining the threat's legitimacy if they had announced the act. What you did, however, may mean anything. It can be a small infraction exaggerated, or it might be the one thing she genuinely thought was permanently buried. She is forced to assume the worst because of this ambiguity, which puts her on the defensive. It turns every future email or phone call from an unidentified number into a potentially disastrous situation. The supposed omniscience of that initial line, rather than actual power, is how the blackmailer gains control. She doesn't know who they are, but they see her and know her. The foundation of their authority is this disparity in information. Of course, there are difficulties with this new dynamic. It took thousands of hours and innumerable rounds to develop the profound, intuitive understanding she shared with Nate. It takes time to create that kind of chemistry. There will be times when a gesture or a look is misunderstood, leading to misinterpretation. She will occasionally miss the unwavering emotional support and the hand squeeze that came after a bad hole and conveyed more than any calculated motivational speech could. A new form of trust, one founded on respect for skill rather than personal love, is needed in a purely professional relationship. Under the extreme strain of playing in a tournament, the process of establishing that trust will take place shot after shot, round by round. Without the benefit of a personal relationship, Stevens faces the problem of understanding the subtleties of her game and her competitive psyche. He needs to figure out what information she reacts to most effectively, when to offer guidance, and when to be quiet and let her play. Performance will be the real litmus test for this new partnership. The leaderboard will serve as evidence of its effectiveness. While initial outcomes may be inconsistent as they develop, the long-term plan is obvious: to establish a high-performing, sustainable ecosystem free from individual fluctuations. Audra is placing a wager that the clarity and knowledgeable direction of a purely professional collaboration will eventually improve her performance more than the emotionally complicated but incredibly familiar one that came before it. She is sacrificing the security of the familiar for the possibility of the optimized. By separating from Nate and recruiting Mark Stevens, single Audra has taken the most challenging risk in golf, a total makeover under duress. She has chosen to unravel a crucial thread in the complex, messy, gorgeous, and rich tapestry of her previous life and profession, daring to create a new pattern. Her tenacity and steadfast dedication to her work are demonstrated by her choice. It exhibits a deep comprehension that the equipment needed to succeed at the greatest level is not only technical and physical but also deeply psychological and structural. The new figure on the bag represents a new era rather than a replacement. He stands for a deliberate decision to pursue a different sort of collaboration, one founded on a professional, open-minded quest for excellence. A new dialogue that might potentially define the second act of a champion's career is starting in the silent strolls up the fairway and the whispered discussions prior to a pivotal shot. Golf fans are keeping an eye on her, not just because of the score she shares, but also because of the narrative she is now crafting on her own, one deliberate step at a time, with a new caddy by her side.